use the word emergency for the first time in about...
This is Jim, and,
Receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus.
You have accessed entry 108.EX3035, certificate number 36682, Beaver Castoreum.
The intoxicating power of the girl's smell made it clear to him that he must learn how to preserve scent, so that never again would he lose such sublime beauty.
Do you use any scented products?
Does Suave Apple Shampoo from the dollar store count?
Oh, that's such good shampoo. I haven't used Suave Apple Shampoo since I was in college.
You used to be able to find it at the store, and I was like, this is really nice smelling shampoo.
Smells like apples.
And it feels like it's as good as the
Green apples.
expensive stuff. Smells like green apples. But I haven't been able to find it for years. And then the other day, I saw the dollar store has it.
Wow.
I guess I've risen to a station in life where I can no longer find Suave unless I go in search of, like Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, Suave Apple Shampoo. I loved Suave. Did you ever try beer shampoo? Probably not.
No, did it have beer in
It had
it?
beer in it. It was supposed to be It was supposed to be good for your hair.
My grandma did that. My mom's mom, I think, used to wash her hair with beer.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of scandalous because she'd always have a 6-pack of beer in the fridge. And if anybody from church saw,
Right.
they'd think grandma's secret drinking
But she was like, no, it's shampoo.
I wash my hair with
But
it.
why would you keep it in the fridge?
Okay, that's a fair point. Why is it in the fridge?
You don't want it in the fridge. It's not like canned beer goes bad that fast.
I guess I sometimes smell like Old Spice.
You do put Old Spice on.
Yeah, but not the aftershave. Like just Old Spice deodorant.
Oh, okay, deodorant.
Deodorant.
But you do wear deodorant.
Yes. Unless there's a sponsor for this show that says I should not use antiperspirant, in which case I don't.
Right. Have you used it since you were a teenager? Like, when did you get in the habit of that?
Yeah, whenever my parents told me I stunk. So,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Deodorant.
1987. But I don't wear any cologne or perfume.
Did it ever occur to you to?
Yes, because it feels like grown-ups should.
Right.
But here's the thing. I don't even wear hair conditioner.
No, clearly.
Nobody ever said, no, my hair's great. But
It's great, but it's a little bit...
Nobody ever sat
it's
down and
dry
said,
look.
nobody ever sat down and said, Ken, you need to start conditioning your hair. And I felt like until invited into that circle, I never really felt the need.
Well, you keep your hair short, so
It's true.
so by the time it would need conditioner, you've already cut it again.
It's true.
I use conditioner a lot on my daughter because her hair gets tangled because she keeps putting in it her soup and stuff.
Well,
'cause
she has
she's a
longer
child.
hair than we do. It just falls in her soup.
So I use conditioner to get the tangles out of her hair.
Do you wear cologne?
No, and like you, I think in the 1980s, I went through a period where, cologne was popular among the girls and boys in my high school in the mid-80s. This was even before CK1.
Before Axe body spray?
Way before that, but Obsession was popular.
Yeah.
But, the boys were all experimenting with different manly fragrances and
the girls were all experimenting with the boys.
and I've known a lot of women that wear a light scent, and sometimes I find them intrusive, but a lot of times I don't. But I never could adopt a cologne. And it's not like I lined up 10 of them and tried them out. I did use, not Brill Cream, but what's the other stuff?
Like mousse?
No. Although, yeah, that was the era of mousse too. No.
Dep.
No.
California.
Old
what's that thing called? California Looks. No, what was that?
Nope. I did use Vitalis because my mom in the early 80s, you know, when gel was becoming popular or gel and mousse kind of at the same time, my mom said, well, that stuff's expensive and it's basically just Vitalis. And I was like, what's Vitalis? And she said, well, you know, Brill Cream was for like sleazy guys. Vitalis is what...
Oh, that's the guy that's going to get a car dealership someday.
Yeah, Vitalis is the stuff that, you know, that your Cary Grant would wear.
I don't want fop. I'm a Dapper Dan man.
So she bought me a little bottle of Vitalis, which was, you know, I mean, because she bought everything at Long's Drugs. She didn't want to buy me any fancy Vidal Sassoon hair gel. She got me Vitalis. And
for homophobic reasons?
No, because it was too expensive.
Oh, okay.
So the bottle of Vitalis she got me was 99 cents at the drugstore. And I, until very recently, still had that bottle. It still had the price tag from Long's Drugs on it that said 99 cents. And I used it over the years. And basically it's rubbing alcohol with some oil in it.
Yeah.
But I used it when I would slick back my hair. I used it on, you know, junior prom. But other than that, I never have worn a scented product.
I like when women wear scented products. So surely I should be giving back to the world.
By wearing something with a kind of
like
leather sandalwood overtone.
Alex always wore quite a bit of scent. You know, he was a guy of that generation.
Yeah.
And also the older you get, the less you smell stuff.
That's
so
right.
They apply liberally. I remember my grandpa smelled so much like, I don't even know what it was, maybe some kind of Menon aftershave or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure it was just because he splashed it on and he wasn't smelling it as much as I was.
You see that a lot. Older people on the bus that have a lot of perfume on. And my mom has said a similar thing. Like, as you get older, you just don't realize how much you're wearing. And
my grandma used to say she couldn't even cook anymore because she said, my taster doesn't work no more. You know, she turned 80 and I just don't think my taster works.
You really are pioneer stock.
Only pioneers have tasters. She was from the Texas-Oklahoma border. Mm-hmm. Great cook, but then her taster gave out.
Taster gave out and everything just tasted like mashed potatoes from then on. Well, I don't know how much time you've spent kind of thinking about the perfume industry. You know, it's a whole universe.
Yes.
The super smellers.
I've been thinking we should do a super smeller show because they seem fascinating, those people.
And the perfume people...
I can't even tell what Jelly Belly I'm eating, you know?
Yeah, right.
I'm
this
like...
grape? Is it sour apple?
Who knows?
The people that are in the perfume business, and there are these prized smellers that can sit and smell 25 fragrances and pick out all the tiny notes, you know, like wine super tasters.
Right.
But one of the things that in the composition of perfumes, there are the smells, but then there are, just like MSG, just like MSG is a flavor enhancer, there are products that are smell enhancers. So they have their own smell, but what the smell of the thing does when added to other smells intensifies the smell.
Yeah, like salt or MSG.
Yeah, it's not...
You put a little bit of salt in chocolate chip cookies and you wouldn't say this tastes salty, but somehow the cookie just tastes better.
Right, the chocolate tastes better, everything jams. And some of the most effective and pungent extra scents that get used in perfume, and it's, you know, one of the reasons that tiny little bottles of perfume are so expensive is not just because that's how capitalism works.
I'm sure there's some element of that. We put in this super rare thing, and that's why it's $140 for a little thing of this Terry Mugler scent. There
is a lot of that, but also they do use very rare and concentrated tinctures
Tinctures.
to create these crazy smells. And one of the elements of making a multi-layered scent is that they're described as fixatives or base notes in scents. They just make things smell better and last longer. And often they originated as organic compounds, because this was before, the rise of scents
make
was,
it in a lab.
Yeah, prior to the rise of chemistry. So as people sort of moved through the world, right, they would find these things, tree saps and like natural products of the world, and realize that these were, that they had a powerful scent, but that powerful scent combined with others could make like arresting fragrances.
And that was big business then, right?
Yeah.
Like 2/3 of the gifts baby Jesus got were
Powerful scents.
perfume additives.
I mean, it's the spice trade was also, a big scent trade. And two of the kind of one of the early things that they discovered in addition to tree saps and so forth was the muskier animals that had musky glands.
you have to wonder how they discovered this.
Well, a deer.
Who was dabbing a civet butt on his neck,
If you're hunting deer and you kill a deer and find within the deer because my people use every part of the deer, you're going to find these glands.
But doesn't this stuff just smell gross on its own?
Well, it does, but what often happens is once a musk gland has dried, once it's aged, the character of the smell changes.
And you're like, say.
And I think in an age where like a hunter a hunter certainly would use those musks to attract game. They would have exposure to musks in a way that maybe it would end up feeling familiar, or maybe they would come back to the village and their spouse would say, "What is it about you?
Is it just because you brought that big deer home? I'm really into you."
And it was the deer musk combined with their perspiration and the pine boughs where they awaited the deer.
I just feel like men are in general too dumb to figure that out. Like that guy should be like, let me just go rub pine needles and that weird part of the deer over my hands before I come home to the missus. But
like a lot of those discoveries, it probably was that they came back to town and people that weren't hunters said, "Your smell brings me closer to God." And
dumb Kevin is just like, what smell?
But they they started to investigate and started to realize that these scents were that scents in combination created other environments.
And everything smelling so bad back then, you would just be so happy and relieved for a moment of bergamot.
Right. This was, and I think we've talked about this on the show, an era where there was a lot more death and decay. Animals died under the house a lot more, and people died under the house, and hygiene and sewers. I mean, there were just a lot more bad smells.
I would have led with sewer, not animals dying under the house, but yes.
Yeah, both things. I mean, we have insulated ourselves from death and smells and sewage so much. I mean, it's one of the things that characterizes life in Seattle. Zero smells other than diesel fumes and pine trees.
That's why people from New York City move here. They, they just think you have to smell garbage all the time.
Yeah.
And then they come here and they're like, wait a second.
It doesn't smell like garbage at all here.
It smells like pine needles.
Every time the plane lands in Seattle, I can smell the fir trees between the aviation gasoline.
I was in LA for 6 weeks and I got home and it had just been raining the whole 6 weeks. It was October and November.
Right.
And it just smelled like wet Seattle forest. And I was so happy.
I know. It's crazy.
It's the equivalent of the hunter coming home with the deer musk and me being like, say.
We would come home from tour and we would enter the Northwest, or Seattle in particular, and I swear I could smell the ferns just in the air, because it's raining and you're
Yeah.
just like, what is that smell? Oh, it's ferns. Wow. The ancients, in discovering all these different scents, searched for it far and wide. And a thing that was known throughout the ancient world, but I think it took a long time to figure out what exactly it was ambergris. And ambergris is a secretion that happens inside a whale's tummy
And then comes
gets
out of the whale.
pooped out of the whale.
Oh, it gets pooped? I
gets pooped.
I thought it was barfed. It gets pooped.
Well, so there's some argument as to whether or not it gets barfed. I think that even now that's inconclusive.
Well, even sperm whales are called sperm whales because people didn't understand which ejecta from a whale were coming out of where.
Right, the spermaceti in their head.
Yeah.
They thought, wow, this whale has really got a lot of sperm. But ambergris was a product of sperm whales. There's some thought that it's there because they eat a lot of squid and squid beaks.
Well, I eat a lot of squid.
Well, I know, but you don't eat giant squid.
That's true enough.
Squid beaks.
You don't know everything about me, but you got me there.
Yeah, it's tough to get an entire, well, and if you did eat a giant squid, I doubt you'd eat the beak. But
My people use every part of the giant squid.
the squid beaks would irritate the stomach of a sperm whale,
Yeah,
and
you shouldn't eat
ambergris would form around the squid beaks.
But I get it. Every other part of the squid you can eat. It's like the only hard part of the squid.
Yeah.
So really, you're just going to take a big bite.
You're going to eat the whole squid.
It would be like if every donut had like one like BB in one corner of it. You'd probably just end up eating a lot of BBs.
You eat around it. I actually had a BB once appear in a loaf of garlic bread at the old spaghetti house or the old spaghetti factory.
Wow.
And
did you sue for millions?
At the time we just thought like, how is that possible? And we spent the rest of the dinner thinking of all the ways a BB could have ended up.
That was
in
when
that
the
loaf of
hunter
bread.
shot that garlic bread.
That's right. Whales would, I think it's part of the formation of ambergris that it stays in the whale's stomach for a long time. And so when they finally expel it out their bottoms, it can be enormous. In fact, over 100 pounds of ambergris have been discovered, like giant
It'll just
balls.
Be a floating patch.
And that's the thing. It floats because it's oily, greasy stuff. And fresh ambergris is terrible by all accounts. It smells like both poop and the sea. So, those are two. You could arguably like the smell of the sea.
The sea kind of smells like poop. You just have to ramp it up a little bit.
Yeah. Low tide plus poop. But when ambergris has floated in the ocean for, in some cases, many, many, many years, centuries even, before it washes ashore, all of that sort of seasoning in the sun and in the waves
it somehow breaks down a lot of the bad smell part.
It becomes still very intense, pungent smell, but one where because it's not poop, it just resided with poop. And so eventually, the natural smell of this stomach secretion of the whale, oily, greasy stomach secretion, comes to the fore. And even in ancient times, ambergris was used as a component of other smells because it was discovered to intensify and deepen other smells without kind of, it's not like a caper. It doesn't overpower the raw hamburger.
Yeah. Don't rub caper juice on your temples or your side of your neck.
No, don't. But do put a little teeny pinch of ambergris. And so it became then a prized. I'm surprised they didn't give some to Jesus.
It's like a currency.
Yeah, they probably didn't have it around, but hard to find and hard to. And once you get it, it's like a thing it's like a truffle. You harvest it, and
they should have given him that sea silk stuff, and then they could have been like, "Hey, you're really giving him the business."
Right. Ooh. Wow, it's been a long time since you punned that hard.
Do you know where I learned about ambergris or ambergris? I guess both are correct.
How? Where?
Encyclopedia Brown. Did you read Encyclopedia Brown as a kid?
I was given a lot of Encyclopedia Browns and read them sporadically, but I was a Hardy Boys guy.
The Hardy Boys seemed like they weren't actually doing any mental work. They were just, jumping into their jalopies. They were more men of action.
Yeah, they stand around.
You're a Hardy Boys, and I'm a Leroy Brown.
The Hardy Boys, if there's a ghostly figure out on the fens by the new hotel, the Hardy Boys are just not afraid to go chase it down.
Yeah, not a lot of deduction going on. It's more like, hey, that guy's getting away. Let's go run after him.
Whereas Encyclopedia Brown just felt like he sat around a lot.
He sits at the dining table.
Yeah.
People bring problems to him. In this case, they found a lump of gunk on the beach. Oh. And, they hinge on a factual thing. Somebody will be like, this is George Meyer's favorite thing. He's like, somebody will be like, I couldn't have committed the crime. I was watching a squirrel run headfirst down a tree. And Encyclopedia Brown will be like, squirrels never run headfirst down trees or backing down a tree or something,
Mm-hmm.
It'll be something stupid like that. It's often some fact about the natural world. And there's one where, somebody finds a lump of gunk on the beach and it smells gross, but only Encyclopedia knows that it smells gross at first, but in small quantities, it smells great and is very valuable to make perfume. And I thought it was BS, that the mystery would hinge on this insane thing that how could you possibly know that whale barf or whatever it is would be valuable in perfume? But apparently it stuck with me because I'm telling you about it at length right now.
I love it. I love that you have an ambergris anecdote.
That's my only ambergris anecdote. I'm going to say ambergris like a cretin.
Well, so ambergris, I mean, the gris-gris in it is French for gray.
Yeah. Is that what it meant? Gray amber?
Gray amber, because amber also, the amber that is fossilized tree sap is also an important component in perfumery.
Wait, really?
Parfumery.
But it's a rock. Do they grind it up?
Well, yeah. I mean, all these things are ground and added to.
And because it's a resin, it still has properties that
Yeah.
you want in perfume, huh?
Yeah. So amber,
But what if you get dinosaur DNA in you that way?
I mean, that's why amber is valuable. The ancients didn't just collect old mosquitoes to extract dinosaur DNA to create a theme park.
But that's jewelry too.
Jewelry.
And when you rub it, it's got kind of a staticky electrical quality that made them think it was magic.
If you rub it a little harder, it smells so fresh and so clean.
Just like me.
Intense. But, ambergris, hard to find, prized when you do find it. But
you couldn't harvest it.
It's hard to harvest.
It doesn't scale.
No, you could. In fact, when whaling arose as a major industry,
just get it straight out of the whale. You don't have to wait for it to wash ashore.
Right. One of the things as you're processing a sperm whale, because my people use every part of the whale, they, after having extracted the oil and the spermaceti for candles and the blubber.
By the way, if I saw a new animal and its head was full of gunk, I wouldn't be like, that's clearly semen. What was up with the ancients where they saw a sperm whale and it had a bunch of waxy gunk in its head and they were like, this thing is full of jizz?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose all it takes is one person.
One guy is like, dude,
hey,
I bet that's semen.
Look at all that. And then everybody else is like,
but it's in its head.
Well, I mean, the ancients thought that your brain was in your stomach. Right? Or your thoughts were in your heart.
I did have a Sunday school teacher when I was a kid tell me that the brain is the largest sexual organ.
Ooh, hot.
And I said, not on me, and went in for the high five. And he was not interested in the high five.
Pretty good. The sperm, who knows what, does a whale have visible testes?
Whales have large dongs.
Yeah, but
there's a whole museum in Iceland about it.
But they're internal. They're growers, not showers.
I think that's probably true.
They retract inside. Otherwise, that would be a vulnerability when fighting a giant squid.
Yeah, but if you know where the organs of generation are on a whale, what do you think is the pipeline to get it from its brain?
When was the last time you read Moby Dick? They don't have, they know a lot about whales, but they don't know a lot about life.
I guess that's true.
They know a lot about life if life is staring out at the sea for 3 years at a time.
I guess if you're on a boat for a long time,
there are no women there.
Yeah, everything's sexual.
Right.
Like you see stuff in a whale's head and you're like, I bet I know what that is. You see a whale and you're like, I'm going to call this guy Moby Dick.
Right. We're still a year away from Polynesia.
And 200 years away from polyamory.
What is there to think about? Oh, that's what polyamorists would like you to think. But they didn't just invent that recently. So in scouring the ancient world for all manner of thing that smelled good and intense, one of the things they discovered in Europe was that the beaver, the noble beaver,
which they have in Europe.
They had in Europe,
okay,
in abundance at one point in ancient times, in medieval times even. The beaver has a unique kind of scent pouch, which is often mistakenly called a gland, but it isn't actually a gland exactly.
Because the pouch is not what makes it?
The pouch makes it, but it is not. I mean, a gland is part of the endocrine exocrine system.
Right.
And the material made by the beaver in this pouch does not have and this is interesting because it does have a pheromonal quality.
But it doesn't go in the bloodstream like a hormone would.
Well, so that's endocrine.
Okay.
Endocrine glands produce bloodstream activating secretions.
Yeah.
Exocrine glands, like sweat glands or, pheromonal glands, do produce material that goes out of the body.
You can see why there's fewer exocrine glands. I want most of my goop on the inside of me.
Well, sure, unless it's pheromonal and you're trying to attract a mate and you don't have any deer musk to smear on your pine boughs.
Humans don't really have much in the way of pheromonal exocrine glands?
Tell that to Dr. Winifred Cutler, who is always advertising her human pheromones in ads in the back of magazines.
That's all quackery.
Maybe you don't read the same magazines I do, where Dr. Winifred Cutler is
this in Redbook?
Is in the back advertising her pheromones. But I mean, there are human pheromones.
There are.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any evidence that you can daub them on and find a mate there.
Well, I don't know. You only had to find one mate.
That's true.
And you attracted her with your prowess at watching movies, right? Wasn't that? What was the number one thing that
I think
Mindy,
it was knowledge of the dialogue from Goonies, I think, and that was about it.
You had all of My Dinner with Andre memorized, and she was like,
she was bored.
And
then I switched to Goonies.
Let me marry you. In the hunting of beavers, which I think, in ancient times they hunted everything, right? Anything that moved, you could shoot an arrow at.
You're hungry.
But it was discovered that beavers had these little pouches that were proximate to the anus. And beavers also had anal glands like other
my dog has those
animals. That's right.
My dog's always scooting around on the carpet.
Yeah.
Cut it out.
I had a friend with a couple
he
of
would
dogs.
Do it?
No, my friend didn't have anal glands, but he had a couple of dogs. And one time I surprised one of the dogs. They were hunting dogs. And this dog expelled this most awful black material from its butt glands because it was freaked out.
Be gone, Satan.
We should have said at the beginning of this episode, don't listen to it if you're eating. But I suppose it's kind of in the title. You're gonna have to.
We got into it gradually enough that people probably started to put their food back in the fridge.
Like, oh boy, this isn't the time to eat this black pudding.
At least they know that we're not going to be chewing during one of these episodes.
But beaver glands, beaver Castoreum glands are not connected to the anus and not related to the anal glands.
They just happen to be back there.
They're just back there in that area. And what the beaver does is use this material, Castoreum, to mark its territory to, like a lot of...
It deposits with the urine or something?
It mixes with the urine. The urine is a lesser component of it, but they can squirt it. They can squirt it out of their back, their bottom area, and so it's often mistaken as a kind of anal secretion, but it isn't one. And every beaver has it. It's not gender specific.
It's not like humans. We're not all squirters,
right? The recognition that beavers they had these pouches that they produced this material resulted in the overhunting of beavers in Europe and and the extinction of beavers in most of Europe that isn't Scandinavia.
Because it was so valuable for its scent related properties.
That's right, for its castoreum.
It was like the same kind of thing as the ambergris in small quantities or after it was denatured or whatever.
That's right.
It was a perfect fixative or base note or whatever.
Yeah, you could dry it and then, use very tiny amounts of it and it would intensify scents, but also food flavors.
Wait, so people would eat it?
We'll get to that. Scents was its primary use, enough that it played a large role in extinctifying beavers in Western Europe.
My wife used to wear this scent that had a lot of, I don't even know, like edible notes. I think this was kind of a fashion around maybe in the 90s that suddenly instead of smelling like citrus or resins or whatever, perfumes would like smell like vanilla or chocolate or caramel. And I had like this really complex smell and I was super into it, but it was just kind of like, because I would eat, candy that tasted like that or something. I was very into the way this angel smelled.
Well,
Angel's the name of the perfume, not what I referred to as some pet name for my wife.
So we'll get to your
my weird
your
predilections.
wife's vanilla flavored perfume in a second.
Hey, watch it.
Rawr. The extinction of the beaver in Western Europe kind of caused the castoreum, the kind of magical quality of it, to become one of those disappeared knowledges.
Like Greek fire.
Yeah, it was something that kind of, there was no more castoreum to be found, and so it was a lost technology.
You think that would be an early conservationist wake-up call? Like, dude, if we didn't kill all the beavers, think of all the castoreum we'd have. I guess that doesn't last. Or it's always realized too late.
That's right. And in fact, there's some suggestion. I mean, castor is Latin for beaver.
That's what they are in Spanish.
But castor oil, which is derived from the castor bean, there's some etymological dispute. And one of the suggestions is that castor oil and castor bean were named for the fact that oil can kind of play the role of castoreum in...
Oh, it was like the vegetable substitute once all the beavers died.
It was like, well, there's no more beavers, but whoever the people that overlapped the two things...
It's like vegan castoreum.
Milk the bean or remember the beaver. Those are your options.
Yeah, I'm going to put that on a poster for my next live sporting event. One sign will say milk the bean and the other will say remember the beaver.
But as we know about the New World,
it was full of beavers.
It was full of beavers. And beaver trapping in the Americas became like a major global enterprise.
It really drove the colonization of the New World. We've talked about this before.
And that was partly because largely because beaver fur became very fashionable. Beaver hats. And beaver fur, obviously waterproof and very warm. But a side effect of the beaver hunting trade was the rediscovery of castoreum as an enhancer. And in these cases, they were killing the beaver anyway and taking the fur, and then found these pouches full of castoreum inside. And
don't say castoreum because it sounds too much like Santorum.
Oh, castoreum.
There we go. There's probably Santorum back there too.
Almost certainly. And so these became a kind of like a secondary prize. And also then there was, the modernization of the scent industry, and castoreum became an important ingredient in modern perfume. It's one of those chicken and egg things. Like,
yeah, would we have gotten the perfume rebirth without that?
Sure. I mean, and scents were being used continuously, but the re-arrival of castoreum enabled more complex scents. It's it's often described as having, I mean, some of those smells that you were describing, a kind of leathery, vanilla-y. Oh, it's been described as a werewolf lumberjack reclining on a bearskin rug. A combination of birch tar and Russian leather.
I bet some of those are the marketing people talking, not the lab scientists with a little eyedropper being like, yes, reclining on werewolf, got it.
100%. But in addition to the perfume universe, in the early part of the 20th century, it was kind of this was in an era that we talked about on the cookbook episode, that there was a lot of experimentation in food and new flavors. And some of that experimentation kind of overlapped with the world of scents. What would happen if we made, and we see this in haute cuisine now, like what happens if we make this burrito taste like lavender?
Right.
Throw scents and flavors together and see what it produces.
That's kind of the molecular gastronomy vibe, is what if it smelled like this in the room when you were eating that?
Right. The crazy thing was that adding this Beaver
Castoreum,
this
Merry Christmas, Castoreum.
This little bit of, that was pretty good, Jimmy Stewart. This little, and again, micro amounts of this material, this goop, would enhance and intensify all kinds of food flavors. And because beavers are vegetarians and they eat, basically wood, it doesn't have the kind of, greasy, gross taste that something, that was secreted from a dog.
It's like it's what we do to our bodies.
Yeah.
The beavers have been living clean for us.
Yeah, they're living clean. And so, and again, if it's dried and then tinctured, it goes through a lot of permutations to become this, this little thing that you could add to food.
So I had no idea it was a food additive. Is it still today, or are there chemical approximations of it still used in food labs? Like, is the Egg McMuffin like full of beaver gunk?
Well, so it had a kind of in the 17th and 18th centuries, when beavers were reintroduced to Europe from the Americas, this Castoreum went through kind of the inevitable phase where it was used in everything. King Charles II, his favorite meal was eggs and ambergris, and then eggs and castoreum.
It's like the truffle oil of the 18th century.
100% is.
Wow.
It was used as a medicine to treat earaches, toothaches, colic, gout. It helped you sleep, or it prevented sleep. It was used to combat epilepsy and constipation. And the belief all the way back to the Greeks was that if you inhaled it as if you burned it and inhaled it as a vapor,
vape Castoreum,
it could facilitate an abortion, which is discovered now, of course, not true, but the ancients.
Particularly if I did it, it's not going to work.
No, you could probably not have an abortion.
I thought you were going to say it was like an aphrodisiac. Was there ever any of that? Because you'd think all this perfume stuff, with the close relation to scent and pheromonal.
I mean, everything is an aphrodisiac if you're on a whaling ship.
Right.
But you're using it, at a level of 10 parts per million when you're seasoning food. But it went through surprisingly, you would think this was a 19th century phenomenon, and then once the beavers were almost extinguished, it wouldn't be as commonplace.
Yeah.
But this discovery of it as a food additive was something that happened at the beginning of the 20th century. And it was found to really intensify vanilla and strawberry. It was sprinkled in cigarette tobacco, again, in tiny, tiny amounts. But if you had a whole bunch of tobacco, processed tobacco ready to be made into cigarettes, and you added a little bit
Of beaver anus.
of this beaver sauce that it just made the cigarettes taste just that little bit extra of. I mean, it's the MSG of cigarettes.
Monosmellium glutamate.
Yeah, you can put it in an awful lot of things.
And is it still used that way?
Well, no. And the reason is that beavers were driven to extinction.
Again.
Or the verge of extinction. And hunting beavers became protected. You can't just go kill as many beavers as you want. And so...
Are they coming back? Like,
They are.
I've seen beavers in ponds in Washington and Oregon.
Lake Washington has beavers.
Or I guess Oregon is the beaver state.
I was dating a girl from California for a while, and I took her down to the boathouse in the Montlake Cut one night, and there were a bunch of beavers living under the dock.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I was like, "Hey, come, let's look at the beavers." And I took her down. And I was like, "Oh, beavers! The Northwest, full of beavers." And I haven't encountered a lot of beavers in Alaska, canoeing and whatnot.
Yeah.
And we got down there, and I was like, "Look at the cute beavers!" And the beavers came kind of around enough that we could interact with them at a respectful distance. And she was like, "They're repulsive." And I had never really looked at a beaver with its giant yellow teeth and its
Consider the beaver.
rodentian.
I'm looking for a picture right now.
Well, the thing is, you can get a cute picture of a beaver.
Yeah.
Beavers, people take a lot of pictures of beavers and they take the cute ones.
They're putting their little hands together.
Yeah,
They've got slapping their tail on the water.
But a beaver, when its teeth are long, well, at least she showed me a new beaver that I'd never seen before, which was the not cute beaver. And it was just looking at them through her eyes.
It's got chubby cheeks, which helps. But
cute.
yeah, the teeth are a problem.
The teeth are a little gross. But so nowadays, the only way that you can get this substance is by two methods. One, there are problem beavers. And problem beavers are ones who are building dams that back up water to...
Yeah, huge ecological damage. I've been places where species are going extinct because the water levels keep rising.
Yeah, and there are a lot of places where beaver dams will encroach on human development. All of a sudden your golf course is underwater because of beavers.
But national parks hate them too. Like, it's not just developers.
Yeah. And beavers are great for creating fire breaks where the big raging fires can't go across this sort of beaver area.
Nature's lumberjacks.
But a lot of places hate them. And in fact, a friend of mine still has a cabin up by Mount Denali, and we would go there every summer. And one year we showed up, and what had formerly been miles and miles of kind of tundra and trees was now all under 6 feet of water. And we went and, we traced kind of the water course and found the beaver dam, which was enormous.
Yeah.
I'd never seen anything like it. It had
the size of a Starbucks.
Yeah, it had, and it went in stages. It was like the dam went over to here where there was a mound of land, and then on the other side of it, it continued to go. Like, they keep building dams as the area fills up. And I'm not sure whether we did a good thing or not, but we climbed out on this dam and started kicking it apart. And we broke the dam. The water poured out.
It's a very male energy.
Yeah,
I don't know if this is good or not, but let's kick some things.
We were 25 years old, and we were like, we're taking this dam out, man. You can't just flood it flooded miles. So we broke this dam. I'm sure the beavers repaired it in an hour, but we felt like real strong men.
They are busy.
There you are.
They are famously busy.
So there are problem beavers, and there are people who are authorized, like in New Hampshire or whatever, to take out problem beavers. In Alaska, there are still trappers. And those people in trapping those beavers still do harvest the little pouches.
Well, is there any kind of sensual way that while the beaver is still alive, you can milk its hindquarters, get that precious castoreum, and just leave a very happy beaver?
There is.
Yeah. I do not want to watch these videos, but yeah.
It requires that that the beaver be anesthetized. So you and the beaver are not having like a time with one another, but you can put a beaver to sleep
problematic.
and then squeeze its Castoreum pouch and collect what is almost certainly a super duper gross
Gunk.
gunk. But it's still used not as a food additive, because to do this is, I mean, they are so scarce that that it would just make food prohibitively expensive. I mean, I'm sure there's a chef at a 4-star restaurant somewhere that that buys, because you can actually buy a Beaver Castoreum pouches come in pairs, and when they're dry and they're connected by a little passageway, a little
Some kind of tubule.
tube. And together, the two of them, I will say they look like figs.
Okay.
Some people would say they look like testes.
I'm with you.
But they look like little figs. You can actually find them on Etsy.
Like the same people selling owl pellets.
Yeah. And so it is possible to use them in food, but not in the mass production of food. They are still used in perfume. As late as 1982, the industrial world of food and perfume were using 700 pounds of Castoreum a year. That has dropped now to a global 300 pounds of Castoreum gets used, which is not really that much. It's a lot if you think about all the beavers you would have to milk.
What do we think about? Is it artificial substitutes? Like, what's the...
That's what's happened. Flavor enhancers have replaced it. You know, vanilla, Castoreum works wonders with vanilla, but it isn't a major component of it.
I've never dipped a vanilla wafer into it.
No. And I think you would, if 2 vanilla ice creams were put side by side, one with 10 parts per million of Castoreum and one without, people they recount that, yes, you would be able to tell the difference. The one with Castoreum is just better, deeper, and more
bigger,
more
deeper,
interesting,
more productive.
One of the reasons that they stopped using it in foods is that you cannot have Castoreum in a food and have it be kosher.
Oh,
or vegan,
because the beaver has little. All those aquatic animals have kind of like
connected
webbed feet, and that rules them out.
And it's an animal product, so vegans don't want anything to do with it. But the reason it comes up is that there was a scandal about 7 years ago. One of the kind of, whatever you would say, first or second generation food bloggers, a woman who went by the catchy handle, The Food Babe, by the name of Vana Hari. She did, and she's one of these food bloggers that is very controversial. Some people credit her with being someone who does these sort of food exposés and is an activist, kind of goes to Kraft and says, why do you keep putting yellow dye in macaroni? She takes on big food producers. She's a anti-GMO person and thinks of herself as an investigative journalist.
Natural organic food movement.
Yeah, and takes on big food. The flip side of the coin is that the sort of scientific community says she has no idea what she's talking about. She's not a trained food scientist. She is a sensationalist and a kind of fearmonger who goes out and is always finding reasons to panic about food.
Yeah.
But in the mid-2000s, she came out with a blog post that said that this castor was being used as a food additive.
I do remember this. You asked me if I remembered this, and I didn't. But yes, this is coming back to me.
Yeah, and she said her quote was, "Beavers flavor a ton of food with their little bee areas." Now, I'm reluctant to use the term.
For the orifice that would be in the hindquarters of a beaver.
That's right. You've said that you're okay with saying it, and I'll allow it this time.
So just so the audience understands, you read the rest of the sentence and I'll help you out.
Beavers flavor a ton of food with their little...
Butthole.
Plural.
Buttholes.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say butthole areas or something.
No. Beavers flavor a ton of foods with their little
buttholes.
And that is a great pull quote. If you want to take a quote and put it,
You can see why things go viral.
yeah. And of course, in this school, in people that are afraid that their food is polluted, the idea of beaver secretion was, it's very sensational, and it went all over, and even and you're remembering it now.
Yeah.
And so then it necessitated a whole bunch of debunking.
And corporations insisting that they've never touched a single beaver hole.
Exactly. Corporations, one after the other, saying like, we have no record of ever having used
Beaver free since 1808.
That's right. And
Maxwell House Coffee has literally never had a beaver butthole in it since 2010.
And the cigarette people, were like, what? We can't even afford it. And that was the argument, right? That in order to really flavor Kraft macaroni and cheese with beaver butt, you would have to kill every remaining beaver.
It's not economical.
It just wouldn't make sense.
You would use a cheaper organic chemical substitute.
But Ken, today is your lucky day. There are products that continue that allow you to consume beaver Castoreum.
If that's your dream, if you don't care what it's for, you just want to make sure you have some inside you. What would you use?
Oh wait, Ken, this won't work for you.
Oh, why not? It's
used primarily as a flavoring agent in liquor.
Oh.
There's a very famous Swedish schnapps. Very famous. Neither of us have ever heard of it, but yeah, that's right. And it translates, the name of it translates as Beaver Shout. It's called Baverhoost. And it's a liqueur that is flavored with beaver Castoreum. And then there are, of course, American
IPAs.
Not IPAs, but artisanal or in this case artisanal beverages. One of them called Eau de Musc.
And it's a liqueur. It's a liqueur. It's like
it's a liquor. No, so I think Eau de Musc is, what is it?
But this is not for it's not a cosmetic product.
No,
you're supposed to nurse it after dinner.
It's a whiskey. Eau de Musc is a whiskey.
Got it.
And the Castoreum, again, it is there less to flavor it than to
put on the label.
Yeah,
probably.
well, and also punch up the flavor. At 10 parts per million, it's not just a nothing.
It's basically homeopathy.
Except that even in tiny, tiny doses, it still has this. It still does this work. So I think you could, if you were making Eau de Musc, you could buy one little pair of glands a year
and make your full batch,
right? And still get that warm but punchy, taste of werewolf lumberjack on a bearskin rug.
I want it on frozen yogurt. I want that to be in the toppings bar. I want to just go in with my frozen yogurt and be like, I'm going to put on gummy worms, I'm going to put on Oreo crumbs, and then I'm going to, pump this hand lotion looking thing and squirt beaver gunk all over the top of my Menchie's.
For me, I want the food of kings, the food of Charles II. Scrambled eggs and beaver butt.
That sounds pretty good. Isn't that the Frasier theme song?
Scrambled eggs and I can't do a Frasier.
And that concludes Beaver Castoreum, entry 108.EX3035, certificate number 36682 in the omnibus. Futurelings as products of our time. John and I were, we were both food bloggers in the 90s, but we've moved on to social media. Now we are respectively at Ken Jennings and at John Roderick, everywhere you look. And at Omnibus Project. Don't forget to follow at Omnibus Project. See what it's up to. The entity that exists out with both of us. You can find fellow Omnibus listeners on the Futurelings page on Facebook. There are similar communities on Reddit and Discord. We receive communications from listeners at the Omnibus Project at gmail.com. When they wanted to send us physical items, they could use... My chair is on the bag. Ugh, there we go. That's going to be a record Omnibus chair squeak moment. I've noticed my chair's getting squeakier.
Right. So now the omnibus
It's in stereo.
Squeak Twitter feed will have to identify our squeaks.
People used to only have squeaks in the left channel when they'd listen in stereo. But now you're going to be able to hear it in both ears. We received mail at the Omnibus Project, P.O. Box 55744, Shoreline, Washington, 98155. Do not just put John Roderick on it because somebody got something sent back. Let's see. This recipient in Maine says, my parents are cleaning their house in preparation to move and they found these. It's a pair of, it's a set of, looks like some kind of military issue playing cards with Saddam Hussein as the ace of spades. Now, my question is he on every card or is this just is this the actual deck?
This is the one, the 52 bad guys.
That's what I'm wondering. Let's find out what's in here. I have never seen one of these in person. It's been opened before, so somebody has actually been playing solitaire with America's enemies. Yep, each one. 2 of clubs, Ugla Sakhr al-Kubaisi. He was the Ba'ath Party chairman for Maisan, and they don't even have a picture of him. That's what I didn't know about these. You get low enough in the ranks, and they don't even know. Although the King of Hearts, Hani al-Latif Tilfa, some kind of...
Oh, she doesn't have a face.
Some kind of special security organization director. There are women. The 5 of Hearts, Huda Salih Mahdi Amash, weapons of mass destruction scientist. I mean, not a very good one, apparently, since Iraq didn't turn out to have any weapons of mass destruction. But
oopsie.
But you go, girl. I mean, I'm sure she was trying her best. This is great. And the Joker has a list of Iraqi military ranks. The other Joker has a list of Arab tribal titles. So really a helpful pocket. You could have a pretty good weekend in Dallas with this stuff.
But when they would find people in that deck, they would name them by the card. They would say, "Oh, we caught the 7 of diamonds."
Do you find that like a little creepy necklace of ears?
I hate everything about the Iraq-Afghanistan misadventures, and it's hard to know where to start hating.
Like, this is not the worst thing about them.
No.
But it's not great.
It's not great, but no, it's not the worst thing about them. I feel like both of those wars could have been and should have been avoided. Obviously, your mileage may vary if you are sitting there wrapped in desert camo right now, feeling like it's all been a righteous thing.
Genevieve sent us...
Obviously, terrorism is completely eliminated from the world.
Yeah, it worked. Mm-hmm. All we had to do was just decades of nonstop and inconclusive global war, and we ended terrorism. Genevieve from Omaha sent us a postcard of a valuable piece of the Danish national heritage, silver plate from the Gundestrup Cauldron, a pre-Roman Iron Age Danish artifact which has weird animals, a guy with antlers holding a very phallic snake, and a weird bracelet. This thing is just full of magical pagan... Oh, it fell on the floor, sorry. Magical pagan energy. Thank you, Genevieve. That actually is very omnibus as postcards go. And I have one more thing. What is this? Oh, it's a Christmas card. We're recording this in December. Oh, Jen sent us $20. This is like having a grandma who. Thank you, Jen.
But how are we going to split that money? Do you have a 10?
If one of us has a 10, I know how to solve this with math. Look at this.
Look at you.
I don't know why I have cash at all, but here. Would you rather have? Well, here you get James Madison.
Nice.
I'm throwing 10s at John. Make it rain. You do not have to send us money. There's a more convenient way to fund the show, although thank you for supporting the U.S. Postal Service, Jen. You can use our Patreon page, patreon.com/omnibusproject. You will feel like part of the community that keeps the show going because you are.
Yes.
And you will also receive cool stuff like a weekly bonus episode, weekly, can you imagine?
Monthly bonus episode.
And many other perks and benefits. Check it out at patreon.com 108.EX3035/omnibus project.
Including signed original show notes,
We got to do some of those right now,
which
by the
are
way.
hilarious if you want to read through them and try and figure out what the heck, how we ever got to a show through these chicken scratches and scribbles.
My recent one about the St. Louis Arch actually has diagrams of with measurements of great arches. So that's going to be a
nice
sought after.
Well, that's great because it came up as I quizzed you about the great arches. You had the figures.
I did. Well, I wanted to know, like, really, how much leeway is there on some of these approaches?
Sometimes the notes that we take for the show are there just to anticipate the esoteric question that we're going to get from our co-host.
That's true.
Oh, I know that Ken is going to ask me what the volume under a curve is here. I got to get my calculus out.
Yeah, let's do a little calculus in the middle of the show.
Futurelings, from our vantage point in your distant past, we hope and fear that our civilization survives the coming apocalypse.
If we say all the words in random order, I think people will kind of get the vibe.
Vantage, futurelings, distant point past. Idea civilization have long. But we hope and pray. Well, I already said that part. We catastrophe, come fear may never. But if the worst comes soon, this recording, like all our recordings, may have been our final word. But if Providence allows, we hope to be back with you soon for another entry in the omnibus.